Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, more specifically in this instance, the work-in-progress Sega Saturn Core, because this week there's been a lot of updates to the core, maybe not so much in game compatibility, but peripheral compatibility, because Electron Ash has been playing around with the code from SRG 320, trying to button up more Lightgun support in the core, because there's a ton of fun Lightgun games on the Sega Saturn, and now as of the most recent test core, SRG 320 has merged those changes in, and now you're going to be playing a lot more Lightgun games. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. Now the House of the Dead on the Sega Saturn is not a great port, it's definitely a lot uglier than the Model 2 arcade original, but because we don't have Model 2 on MiSTer, and we probably never will, it is the best way to play the House of the Dead on MiSTer FPGA. And even though the port's a little bit ugly, it doesn't have the same frame rate as the arcade version, the one good thing is all of the fun 100% translates over. The original House of the Dead is still one of the best Lightgun games of all time, especially in the horror genre, and even if the Saturn version is uglier than your mother, it is still going to be a fun time. But all jokes about your mom aside, it is so much fun to have this working better in MiSTer FPGA. And remember, you don't need a CRT television and an original Lightgun. We can use stuff like Gun for IR, you can use stuff like Sinden Lightgun, or even the GunCon 3 with the IR sensors on cores that never actually supported LCD televisions back in the day, and that's just up to all the developers that have basically implemented these functionalities in, because I totally understand not everyone keeps a CRT television in their collection or the original light guns, so something like Gun for IR will basically cover you across the entire spectrum so long as you set it up right. And I will in the future have a video on all of the different light gun options for MiSTer FPGA, both on CRT televisions as well as LCD, so everyone can enjoy playing these games, because honestly it is still my favorite arcade genre of all time. It always hits when I play these titles, and now on MiSTer you can play something like the House of the Dead with solid light gun support, because trust me, it is not the type of game you want to play with a D-pad in any way, shape, or form. It absolutely ruins the gameplay. I think all of these games are basically light gun or absolutely nothing. So seeing something like the House of the Dead playing this well on the MiSTer Core is incredible, because I keep a PVM as well as a Sega Saturn hooked up to my television next to me, along with a PlayStation as well, so I can play all those original 32-bit light gun games whenever I want. But it is just a 20-inch CRT. Sometimes I want to play on my 7-inch OLED in my living room, and having stuff like the functionality of different light guns that'll work on modern televisions absolutely does it for me as well. And even now, if I was going to play on my PC, I'd definitely go to the Model 2 version with Gun for IR. When I want that Saturn original, I'm definitely going to be using this core because it just works so well right now. Now of course you do need to calibrate the accuracy of the gun both in the game as well as on the MiSTer operating system itself, and I definitely do have videos if you need that explained to you, but this is just more of an overview of just how good this core has gotten, because we've got so many different things in Saturn in January and now February. We got STV support, we have stuff like light gun support getting improved. It is just fun to see the end stages of the core's development while SRG 320 kind of fixes up bugs and improves the overall core and adds an STV functionality. Other people like Electron Ash are just going in and helping where they can, kind of poking at the light gun code and even the code for STV as far as the actual controls are concerned. And it's just so much fun to be able to play this stuff. And again, remember, there is a big wealth of fun light gun games on MiSTer FPGA. Sure, Time Crisis 4 or Time Crisis Crisis Zone aren't going to be there because that's PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, but the point is there's a lot of different ways to play light gun games on MiSTer, and being able to use all of these different peripherals in the way you want versus having to be stuck on that CRT television does make a huge difference. Obviously I'm showing you PlayStation 1 footage. This is from the video that'll be going live soon about light gun support on MiSTer FPGA, but being able to use a traditional television with something like MiSTer on the Sega Saturn Core or the PlayStation Core, it just 100% makes things that much easier and more fun, and I really am stoked. But now it's soundtrack sample time, because it's been a long time since we talked about the House of the Dead in testing videos, so go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll come back and show you 2 more light gun games that are absolutely amazing on MiSTer. But enjoy, because this is awesome. Honestly, if you ask my opinion, The House of the Dead has the best music ever set to any sort of light gun game, and that is definitely something I've always felt, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. Now moving on to Crypt Killer, it's another one of my personal favorite arcade games of all time. I own the original arcade PCB, and while the Sega Saturn version isn't as good as the PlayStation 1 port is, it is still a fun time, but it is another game that you're going to be able to enjoy a lot more as of these most recent cores. It's basically Ray Harryhausen style monster animations with a ton of fun, inventive sprites. While it might be a little bit ugly on the Sega Saturn and is always considered to be a bad port, it is the exact same game that you play on PlayStation 1 or arcades, just with a little worse textures, and honestly, that isn't the worst thing in the world. You can still understand what's going on, and it is still a ton of fun to play. Now granted, if you do have MiSTer FPGA, you may as well go over to the PlayStation 1 version because it is a little bit better graphically, but the Sega Saturn version is only like 10% off the original, and that's totally fine for me. And as far as a testing exhibition is concerned, it definitely helps out showing the Saturn version on a Saturn Lightgun video. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with the captures this week as well. He was having an absolute blast with Crypt Killer because I'm always telling everyone this game is just one of those amazing hidden gems that no one ever talks about, and the best part is it got a pseudo sequel on the 3DO M2 with Evil Knight on the Konami arcade board, so it really is the first part of a two-part series on some of my favorite hardware of all time. And I will say here again, the performance is exactly what you would expect out of a game if you're just using a light gun, and this is the type of thing, these games definitely look better on a CRT television versus an LCD or via a capture card, because we're basically just emphasizing how big the pixels really are here. But if you play this on a CRT or a PVM, you get a lot better blending from that type of technology, and the game is just going to look prettier than it appears. So don't think Crypt Killer on the Sega Saturn is a quote-unquote ugly game. It just needs a little bit of that CRT magic to really look its part. But again, that doesn't matter because we're here talking about light gun accuracy and light gun support in the core, and again, it is another fun game to play on Saturn. And of course, you can do two-player in this right now as well. That has been added to the core, so it's one of those things, these games are always better if you bring along a friend and just play a two-player game. Open up some beers because you need to remember, a light gun game only requires one hand to play, the other one can be drinking Miller High Life at the exact same time. Another reason why I love light gun games, that allows me to drink while I play. But definitely check Crypt Killer out if you haven't, whether it's on the Saturn core or the PlayStation core, or even if you jump over to MAME and play the arcade original. It's just one of my favorite games of all time, and I do love the arcade board in my collection. While I'll never sell it, I pretty much go right to the PlayStation 1 version on MiSTer if I want to play today. Now, as opposed to moving over to Virtual Cop or Virtual Cop 2, which is what you would expect me to talk about, I'm going to show Mighty Shot next. If you ever played PlayStation 1, Point Blank 1, 2, or 3, you're going to understand exactly what Mighty Shot is asking of you. And while it might not technically be as good as the Point Blank franchise, it has all the fun and all the charm. It's just maybe some of the mini games aren't as exciting as you see in Point Blank, but it is one of those games I feel like 9 out of 10 people that are watching this video have never heard of before, and it is an absolute hidden gem on the Sega Saturn as far as light gun games are concerned. This is the perfect party game to put on next time you have people over, hand them a couple of light guns, and you're going to have a metric crap ton of fun. It is just one of those titles that I'm always surprised more people don't know about, because Mighty Hits is just point blank on Sega Saturn in all the best ways possible. There's so many different fun mini games to play here. There's so many different challenges, whether it's going to be a one-shot challenge or whether it's going to be hit X amount of targets in a set period of time. I do love these style of light gun games, even though I'm a huge fan of stuff like The House of the Dead or Virtual Cop. It just basically gives you another way to play light gun games on a console with these kind of puzzle party games, and this works great on MiSTer FPGA as well. And you definitely need to have good accuracy, because some of these levels and puzzles are going to require you to basically hit a very small target with one shot, just like you would on something like Point Blank, or this level right here, having to spin all of the cubes around until you're able to complete a puzzle. I'd say maybe the game is a little too generous on the timing, but you can up the difficulty, so maybe go to hard mode off the top and play it that way. But trust me, Mighty Hits is just one of those games on Sega Saturn. Pretty much nobody knows it exists, nobody talks about it, and I'm always surprised by that. And it's a great game to test on the new cores that are in unstable nightlies with all of the new merges as far as the light gun code is concerned, because I really do feel like it's a game that no one's heard of before. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me, have you ever heard of Mighty Hits? I would be curious. That's the current situation with the current Sega Saturn core. As of the recording of this video, Lightgun support has been greatly improved and added into the core, and now you're going to be able to basically use any Lightgun you want across an LCD television or a CRT television, and that makes all the difference in the world, because even if the Saturn library is not predominantly Lightgun games, the stuff that is here is awesome, and you should be playing it. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.